The Galactic Council had faced countless challenges in their vast existence, but none were quite as dangerous as the Omega-7 mission. Situated at the edge of the galaxy, Omega-7 was a mysterious system. At its core, a black hole, an anomaly so powerful it threatened to devour everything in its path. For years, the Council had tried to send their best scientists and engineers to stabilize the system. The mission was simple: prevent the gravitational instability of the black hole from causing the collapse of the system or evacuate the surrounding planets before it was too late. However, this task was considered a suicide mission. No one had ever survived close proximity to such a powerful black hole. The gravitational surges were so intense that they had already torn apart multiple starships. Despite the best efforts of the Galactic Council, no expert, no alien scientist, and no engineer was willing to risk their lives in the face of certain death. The black hole's destructive power had already proven to be too much. With each failed mission, hope began to fade. It seemed as though no one would ever dare attempt it again. But then, the unexpected happened. Dr. Elena Carter, a young human scientist from Earth, stood up and volunteered. Her proposal was simple, yet it sent a ripple through the room. Elena, known for her sharp mind and innovative ideas, was only in her early 30s. She was the last person anyone expected to volunteer for such a dangerous task. The council members exchanged skeptical glances. To them, humans were still a relatively primitive species in the grand scheme of galactic intelligence. They lacked the technology and knowledge that other species possessed. The idea that a human could succeed where the best alien scientists had failed was laughable. Yet, Elena's determination shone through, and she wasn't going to back down. "I'll do it," she said firmly, her voice unwavering despite the doubt and ridicule from the council members. "I have a solution." The council was baffled, but they couldn't deny her persistence. Elena's reputation preceded her. She was known for thinking outside the box, for solving problems that no one else could. Her secret weapon, she revealed, was Earth's latest technological breakthrough: experimental nanobots and an AI-driven drone swarm that she had developed herself. While other species relied on traditional methods, Elena was betting everything on the power of these new technologies, which could potentially navigate the gravitational surges and analyze the black hole's activity in real time. The council had no choice but to approve her plan. But they did so reluctantly, still unconvinced that a human, armed with technology they barely understood, could succeed where others had failed. As Elena prepared for the mission, she knew that this would be the ultimate test, not just for her, but for humanity as a whole. She had the chance to prove that humans weren't just survivors in the galaxy, but capable of greatness in the face of unimaginable odds. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The success or failure of this mission would not only determine the fate of Omega-7, but also solidify Earth's place among the stars. Elena's starship, the Courageous, was equipped with the latest technology. As it entered the Omega-7 system, a heavy silence hung in the air. The team of alien engineers and scientists she was traveling with eyed her cautiously, unsure of what to expect. Elena, however, was focused. She was determined. They had no idea what they were about to face. The first test came sooner than expected. As they approached the black hole, Elena's ship was rocked by a violent tremor. The gravity wells of Omega-7 were far stronger than anything the crew had experienced before. The gravitational waves shot through the system, creating massive distortions in space. Elena's equipment began to hum with tension as it tried to adapt to the unexpected forces. Her eye began processing the data faster than it ever had before, but it was clear that the situation was escalating far more rapidly than anyone had anticipated. Then it happened. The alien cruiser, part of the mission's convoy, was ripped apart in an instant. A sudden gravitational surge had torn through the ship's hull, turning it into a mangled wreck. The crew on board had no time to react. The ship was disintegrated so quickly that nothing was left to salvage. Panic spread throughout Elena's team. The reality of the danger was hitting them hard. The alien engineers looked at Elena with fear and distrust. They had known the risks, but seeing the effects firsthand was something else entirely. They turned to Elena, questioning whether they should turn back. But Elena, calm in the face of chaos, stood tall. "This is what we've prepared for," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "We need to push forward. If we turn back now, all the lives we've lost so far will have been for nothing." Her words were met with skepticism, but Elena was resolute. The black hole was unpredictable, yes, but there was a chance, just a chance, that her methods could work. The nanobots and AI drones she had deployed were beginning to collect vital data that could potentially neutralize the gravitational surges. She had studied these anomalies for years, and while this situation was far worse than anything she had expected, she wasn't about to let fear stop her. The team reluctantly followed her lead. They had no other choice. As they pressed on, Elena's calculations became increasingly complex. She was working at a pace that no human had ever worked before, every decision a matter of life and death. The black hole began behaving in even more unpredictable ways, reacting to their presence with furious intensity. The AI tried to adapt, but it was struggling to keep up with the sheer power of the gravitational surges. Then, just when it seemed like they might have a breakthrough, another surge struck. It was stronger than the last. The entire ship was rattled as the power of the black hole threw them off course. Elena's heart raced as she checked her instruments. The AI was reporting anomalies, but the data didn't make sense. It was as though the black hole itself was aware of their presence and was actively trying to prevent them from succeeding. Her team was beginning to panic. The alien engineers began doubting her methods. They had followed her into the abyss, but they didn't know if they could trust her anymore. Elena could feel their eyes on her, filled with distrust and fear, but she had to stay focused. As the ship was pulled deeper into the black hole's gravitational pull, Elena made a decision. She had one last card to play. With no time to waste, she activated the full potential of her nanobots and drones, launching them into the heart of the black hole's turbulence. The bots would try to stabilize the surrounding gravitational fields, redirecting the waves and giving the ship a chance to survive long enough to make it to the evacuation point. But as the black hole surged once again, the situation became even more dangerous. Elena knew they were running out of time. The fate of everyone aboard now rested in her hands, and she wasn't about to let them down. As the Courageous slowly descended deeper into the heart of the Omega-7 system, tensions began to escalate. Elena, who had once been met with skepticism by the alien engineers and scientists, now found herself at odds with them in a more serious way. The alien crew, once curious and intrigued by her presence, were now openly questioning her methods. To them, her human technology, especially the experimental nanobots and AI-driven drones, was inferior. Their advanced systems, which they had relied on for centuries, were far superior in their eyes. The human solutions, though innovative, seemed primitive and risky. Elena knew this was coming. She had expected resistance, but not to this degree. Her nanobots were designed for flexibility, for adapting to changing environments in real time, something the alien systems had never had to deal with. But despite her insistence, the alien engineers started pushing back. They were unwilling to trust her technology. "We need to use the cloaking field generator," one of the engineers, a tall reptilian alien named Zorik, said dismissively. "It's been tested for situations like this. Your nanobots and drones are unproven." Elena felt her frustration growing. The cloaking field generator was an old method. It was effective for keeping ships hidden, but it wasn't designed to handle the volatile forces of a black hole. Elena's own plan was more dynamic, more capable of reacting to the unpredictable shifts in gravitational waves. But every time she tried to explain her reasoning, her voice was drowned out by the alien experts who insisted on sticking to their tried and tested systems. The tension only increased as they neared the black hole's event horizon. Elena watched nervously as the alien engineers, in defiance of her calculations, activated the cloaking field generator. She knew it wasn't enough to withstand the forces they were about to encounter, but she had no choice but to go along with it. For now. It didn't take long for Elena's fears to materialize. The moment the generator was switched on, the ship's sensors went haywire. A powerful gravitational spike shot through the system, destabilizing their orbit. The entire starship rocked violently as the black hole's pull intensified. The cloaking field generator, designed for stealth, couldn't cope with the extreme gravitational forces. Sparks flew from the control panels as systems failed, and alarms blared across the bridge. The crew scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. Elena felt the ship lurch. And then, chaos. A part of the crew, caught in the heart of the malfunction, was ripped away by the black hole's gravitational pull. The desperate cries of the crew members echoed throughout the ship as they were torn from the safety of the courageous, their bodies pulled into the void. It all happened in the blink of an eye. Elena's heart sank as she watched helplessly. The alien engineers, now in panic mode, started blaming each other. It was clear that they didn't want to admit that their old methods had failed. They had underestimated the danger, and now they had paid the price. In the midst of the chaos, Elena took action. She knew she couldn't rely on the alien engineers anymore. If the mission was going to succeed, it would be because of her and her technology. While the crew scrambled to regain control of the ship, Elena secretly activated her nanobots and drone swarm, sending them to work on stabilizing the ship's systems. The nanobots, already designed to adapt to changing gravitational conditions, began to monitor the fluctuations in the black hole's activity, sending real-time data back to Elena's control interface. As her drones began mapping the surrounding space, Elena made a chilling discovery. The gravitational surges were becoming more erratic and unpredictable. The courageous was on the brink of being pulled into the black hole, and unless they acted fast, the mission would end in disaster. But Elena didn't have time to warn the alien engineers. She knew they would dismiss her findings, just as they had dismissed her methods earlier. She couldn't risk the mission failing because of their pride. When the alien commander, General Thurvok, realized that Elena was bypassing their systems and deploying her own technology, he was furious. The general, a large and intimidating alien with dark green scales and glowing eyes, stormed into the command center, his anger palpable. "What are you doing, human?" he growled, his voice low and threatening. "I gave you a chance to prove your worth, but this. You're not a part of this mission anymore. You're sabotaging everything we've worked for." Elena looked up at him, unshaken. "I'm saving all of us," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "You need to trust me, General. My technology is the only thing that can keep us alive." But Thurvok wasn't listening. His pride had been wounded, and in that moment, Elena was nothing more than an intruder in his eyes. He turned to his officers and issued an order. "Lock her in a shuttle. Now." Before Elena could respond, several alien soldiers moved swiftly, grabbing her arms and dragging her toward a small shuttle bay. The crew had turned on her, betraying the trust she had fought so hard to earn. It was a harsh blow. Elena had known that the alien engineers were skeptical, but she never imagined they would abandon her so completely, especially in the face of impending disaster. As she was shoved into the shuttle, Elena tried to make one last plea. "Please, you're making a mistake," she shouted. "You're all going to die if you don't let me help." But the doors slammed shut before she could finish. Trapped inside the small shuttle, Elena's mind raced. She knew that her nanobots and drones were still working, but without access to the main ship systems, there was little she could do to stop the inevitable. The Courageous was on a collision course with disaster, and the alien crew had no idea just how close they were to being lost forever. As the shuttle drifted away from the ship, Elena couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal. She had given everything to the mission, only to be cast aside when her methods were seen as too risky. But in the pit of her stomach, Elena knew one thing for sure. If anyone could survive this, It was her. With the Courageous now a sinking ship and the black hole growing ever closer, Alina had to think fast. There was no more room for mistakes. Her survival depended on it. Alina sat in the cramped shuttle, her mind racing as she tried to process everything that had happened. The Courageous was gone, lost to the black hole's pull, and the alien crew had turned against her. They had locked her away. And now it was up to her, only her, to find a way out of this disaster. Despite the overwhelming odds, Alina's determination never wavered. She knew one thing. If anyone could save them, it was her. Inside the shuttle, Alina activated her AI assistant, a highly advanced self-learning program that had been designed to assist her in complex problem-solving situations. The AI was connected to her swarm of experimental nanobots, which had been quietly monitoring the black hole's gravitational fluctuations. The nanobots, small and nearly invisible, were capable of analyzing and responding to the chaotic forces around them in real time. Alina's task was simple but daunting. Find a way to stabilize the system, predict the movements of the black hole, and save the remaining crew from certain destruction. The first step was to break through the communication jam that had been put in place by the alien engineers. They had locked her out of the ship's systems, trying to isolate her and prevent her from taking control. But Alina wasn't easily deterred. With a few keystrokes, she began hacking into the communication systems, bypassing the alien protocols with ease. Her fingers danced over the console as she connected her shuttle's AI to the ship's emergency communication network. Within minutes, Alina had established a direct line to the remaining crew, though it was a risky move. The alien engineers were still watching closely, but Alina had no choice. She had to act fast. Using the AI, she initiated a command to activate her swarm of drones. The drones, a cluster of highly sophisticated machines designed to work in tandem with her nanobots, were now ready to calculate the safest possible orbit for the Courageous, based on the real-time data Alina's swarm had gathered. As the drones moved into position, Alina began analyzing the data. Her AI assistant worked in the background, processing thousands of variables in mere seconds. It was a daunting task, but Alina was no stranger to high-pressure situations. The data was coming in fast and furious, and she had to make sense of it before the black hole's gravitational forces became too erratic to predict. Within minutes, Alina had developed a predictive model for the black hole's fluctuations. She had calculated a stable orbit, a path that would take the remaining crew far enough from the black hole's event horizon to give them a chance at survival. The model was based on the patterns Alina had noticed in the black hole's behavior over the past few hours. Despite the unpredictable nature of the cosmic anomaly, Alina had found a way to stabilize the system, at least temporarily. But just as she was about to transmit her findings to the remaining crew, something unexpected happened. The AI, which had been running smoothly, suddenly began to glitch. Alina's heart skipped a beat as the interface flickered and the data became corrupted. The experimental AI, designed to be adaptive and self-learning, had never encountered a force as chaotic as the one they were dealing with now. The gravitational waves were too unpredictable, and the AI's systems were struggling to keep up. Alina's fingers flew over the console as she tried to regain control. The AI assistant was malfunctioning, and the last thing she needed was to lose the ability to communicate with the remaining crew. Sweat dripped down her face as she worked furiously to stabilize the system, her mind racing for a solution. She couldn't afford to fail now, not when the lives of so many were on the line. Meanwhile, on the Courageous, the remaining crew was in disarray. The alien engineers, having been forced to turn to Alina for help, were still skeptical of her methods. They had no choice but to trust her now, but that didn't mean they were happy about it. Alina's nanobots and drones were their last hope, and they knew it. General Thurvok, however, wasn't so easily convinced. His pride, bruised by the failure of the alien systems and the need to rely on a human, had grown into something darker. He watched from a distance, his mind racing with the idea of sabotaging Alina's plan. In his mind, No human could be more brilliant than him or his people. If Alina's solution worked, it would mean that the humans were capable of things the aliens could never have imagined. Tharvok's resentment festered, and he began plotting how to undermine Alina's efforts. If he could disable her technology, even for a moment, it might be enough to throw the mission into chaos. He didn't care about the lives of the crew as much as he cared about his ego and the status of his people. To him, allowing a human to succeed was an affront to everything he had believed in. As Alina continued to work furiously on her malfunctioning eye, she noticed something strange. There were irregularities in the data being transmitted back from her swarm of drones. Someone was interfering with the system. It didn't take long for her to realize what had happened. General Tharvok had tried to sabotage her efforts. He had used his position to override the transmission and prevent her from sending the data to the crew. A wave of anger surged through Alina, but she didn't have time to let it consume her. She knew that the longer she hesitated, the more danger they would be in. If she didn't act fast, everything would fall apart. She quickly rewrote the algorithms to bypass Tharvok's interference and re-establish a secure channel to the ship. The tension was palpable as Alina, with the help of her AI assistant and nanobots, fought against the clock. At that moment, the black hole delivered an unexpected blow. A massive gravitational flare shot out from the event horizon, a burst of energy that rattled the shuttle and caused the entire system to shift. Alina's shuttle was thrown off course, and her systems began to fail. The AI, already unstable, went completely offline, leaving Alina with only her nanobots and her instincts. Desperation clawed at her as she realized that the black hole's unpredictable behavior was too much even for her technology to handle. She had to adapt, and fast. As the shuttle began to spin uncontrollably, Alina activated a backup system, the last resort. She sent a command to her drones to form a protective barrier around her shuttle, buying her the precious seconds she needed to regain control. With trembling hands, Alina manually recalibrated the shuttle's navigation systems. It wasn't easy, but her experience with high-stakes engineering gave her the edge she needed. As the gravitational waves intensified, Alina's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't afford to fail now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Alina stabilized the shuttle. The black hole's flare had passed, and the system had calmed down, at least for the moment. Alina took a deep breath, knowing that the worst was far from over. But she had done it. She had saved herself, and she was one step closer to saving the crew. As Alina transmitted the data to the Courageous, she couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. She had outsmarted Tharvok, and she had proven that, in the end, it wasn't alien technology that would save them. It was human ingenuity. Only one human dared to take this job. The mission had been completed. The universe had witnessed the unimaginable. And now the survivors could only look at each other in disbelief. The massive black hole, which had once threatened to tear apart the entire system, was now nothing more than a distant memory. Its destruction, however, came at a devastating cost. Alina had succeeded in saving them, but the price was high. Helena lay on a medical bed, her body battered and broken. The explosion that had saved the crew had also inflicted severe injuries on her. The blast had torn through the shuttle's systems and sent shockwaves through her body, damaging organs and leaving her barely conscious. But despite the pain, Alina had managed to hold on. She had completed the mission. And for that, she had no regrets. Her mind drifted in and out of consciousness, but her heart swelled with the knowledge that she had done what no one else thought possible. Her name had already spread throughout the galaxy. Alina, the human who had dared to challenge the impossible, the underdog who had taken on an entire alien fleet and saved the galaxy from certain destruction. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of humanity's so-called inferiority, now looked at Earth in a new light. No longer were humans seen as a fragile, unimportant species. They had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, dangerous, unpredictable, and capable of outsmarting even the most advanced civilizations. The news of Elena's actions reached every corner of the galaxy. The once staunch enemies of humanity, particularly the alien species who had doubted them, now found themselves questioning everything they had ever believed. General Thurvok, who had once viewed Elena as nothing more than an obstacle to be discarded, was now forced to confront the reality of what had transpired. His plans had failed, his ego shattered. He had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, had nearly destroyed his own crew and civilization. But it wasn't just Thurvok who felt the sting of shame. The entire alien fleet that had once looked down on humanity was now forced to confront their own flaws. They had treated humans as weak and inconsequential, only to have one human single-handedly change the course of their destiny. They were humiliated, not just because of the loss, but because they had failed to recognize humanity's potential. However, Elena had never been one to hold grudges. In her final moments, when the battle had been won and the black hole had been neutralized, she chose to let go of the anger and bitterness that might have clouded her judgment. Despite everything that had happened, Elena decided to extend a hand of forgiveness. She believed that humanity's strength lay not in vengeance, but in the ability to move forward, to build bridges where others saw walls. Elena's final words to Thurvok were simple yet powerful. "You were wrong, General. But we all make mistakes. We've all got a lot to learn. This is your chance to do better. Don't waste it." Thurvok, standing before Elena in the medical bay, looked at her with a mixture of awe and regret. The alien commander had always seen himself as superior, a being above others in intellect and power. Now, as he looked at the human who had just saved the galaxy, he was humbled. I was wrong," Thurvok said, his voice barely a whisper. "Your species, your people, are not what we thought. You are far more than we ever imagined." Elena gave him a small, pained smile. "We weren't chosen because we are the strongest or the smartest. We dared because we never give up." Her words resonated with the entire crew. The aliens, once smug and full of pride, now understood the power of perseverance. Elena's victory was not just a technical achievement. It was a testament to human resilience, to the unyielding spirit that refused to bow to impossible odds. In that moment, the aliens saw humanity for what it truly was, not just an inferior species, but a force capable of taking on the greatest challenges and emerging victorious. The aftermath of the mission was a turning point for humanity. Elena's actions became a symbol of hope and determination, inspiring countless others across the galaxy to rise above their circumstances and fight for what they believed in. The Galactic Council, once so dismissive of Earth's place in the universe, now found itself sitting at the table with the humans as equals. No longer would Earth be seen as a backwater planet, a place of insignificance. Humans had earned their place in the galaxy, and they were ready to take on whatever challenges the future held. Elena, though injured and exhausted, could feel a sense of peace wash over her. She had achieved what she set out to do. She had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. She had shown that no matter how small or weak you might seem, with determination, courage, and the willingness to never give up, anything was possible. And she had done it all not for fame or recognition, but because she believed in her people, in their strength, and in their ability to change the course of history. As Elena recovered in the medical bay, the crew gathered around her. They spoke in quiet tones, reflecting on everything they had been through and everything they had learned. They had seen the power of unity, of fighting for a cause greater than themselves. They had witnessed the courage of one human who had refused to give up, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. It was then that Elena's final words, the ones she had spoken to Thurvok, echoed through the minds of everyone in that room. "We weren't chosen because we are the strongest or the smartest. We dared because we never give up." And in that moment, the crew understood. They understood that it was not about being the best or the most powerful. It was about the willingness to keep going, to fight through adversity, and to never stop believing in themselves and their mission. The legacy of Elena's sacrifice would live on, not just as a story of triumph over impossible odds, but as a reminder that sometimes the underdog has the power to change everything. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, had proven itself to be a force that no one could ignore. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The final phase of the mission had arrived. Alina sat at the heart of the shuttle, her eyes scanning the complex data streaming across multiple screens. The black hole was growing more violent by the minute, its gravitational force destabilizing the entire system. The planets that had once orbited peacefully were now in danger of being torn apart. The once calm space around them had become a chaotic storm of energy, with every passing moment bringing them closer to certain destruction. Alina's mind raced. She had always been resourceful, always found a way to outsmart the obstacles in her path. But this time, the challenge was like nothing she had faced before. The black hole was an unstoppable force, and she had to find a way to redirect its power, or all would be lost. She knew she was running out of time. The shuttle was running on fumes, its fuel and resources drained to near nothing. Her crew, once hopeful, now seemed exhausted. They had survived countless challenges, but they had never faced a threat of this magnitude. The tension in the air was palpable, and Alina could feel the weight of her responsibility bearing down on her. The survival of her crew, the safety of the galaxy, they all rested on her shoulders. But Alina was no stranger to pressure. She had always thrived under it. With the remaining resources on hand, she devised a dangerous maneuver, a move so risky that even the most seasoned engineers would balk at the idea. Using her swarm of nanobots and the experimental AI systems, Alina planned to artificially redirect the gravitational distortions caused by the black hole. The nanobots, with their ability to manipulate the smallest of particles, would work in tandem with the AI to create a counterforce that could shift the course of the black hole's gravitational pull. But it was no small feat. The procedure would drain the shuttle's remaining fuel and resources, leaving them with almost nothing. Alina ran through the calculations again and again. The math was complex, the risks were astronomical, but she could see no other option. There was no time left to waste. The black hole was not waiting for her to finish. The planets were already beginning to break apart under its influence, their orbits spiraling into chaos. The crew was beginning to lose hope. Alina could see it in their eyes, the fear that they wouldn't make it out of this. She knew they were looking to her for guidance, for the plan that would pull them from the jaws of death, and she couldn't afford to fail them. Alina, one of the crew members, a young engineer named Kel, spoke up as he approached her. His voice was shaky, but there was a sense of determination behind it. "Are you sure this is the only way? We have nothing left to give." Alina turned to face him, her expression hardening. "It's the only way, Kel. If we don't do this, there will be no system left to save. No one else can stop this thing." Kel nodded slowly, his fear momentarily replaced by resolve. Alina gave him a small, reassuring smile before turning back to her calculations. She could feel the eyes of the rest of the crew on her as she finalized the details of the maneuver. The plan was set. There was no turning back. Alina initiated the sequence to deploy the nanobots. A sudden surge of activity filled the shuttle as her swarm of AI-controlled bots scattered throughout the ship, linking into the ship's core systems. The hum of energy grew louder as the nanobots activated their specialized algorithms, and the gravitational waves began to shift in response. It was a delicate balance. Too much, and they would burn through all their remaining fuel in an instant; too little, and they wouldn't be able to counteract the black hole's force. Alina felt every second tick by as she watched the systems respond. Suddenly, the shuttle jolted violently, and the lights flickered. The gravitational surge from the black hole was growing stronger, far beyond their calculations. Alina's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. The black hole was about to release its final, catastrophic surge, a burst of energy that would tear apart everything in its path. She had to act now. Alina's fingers flew over the controls as she overclocked the experimental tech. The shuttle's engines roared to life, pushing the limits of what was possible. She could feel the energy coursing through the ship, the very fabric of the universe stretching and bending around them. The nanobots worked tirelessly, shifting the gravitational distortions, trying to create a counterforce strong enough to redirect the black hole's pull. But the strain was too much. The shuttle's power systems began to overload, and Alina could see the fuel reserves reaching critical levels. She only had one option left. With a deep breath, Alina activated the self-destruct protocol. The shuttle's core began to hum with energy, ready to unleash its final surge of power. The crew gasped in shock as the countdown began, but Alina's voice was steady, filled with unwavering determination. "It's the only way to make sure we stop it. The explosion will redirect the black hole's force, saving the system and the crew." Alina's finger hovered over the final button. She was willing to give everything to complete the mission, but there was a bitter taste in her mouth as she realized the cost. She would never see the stars again, never feel the comforting hum of a ship's engines beneath her feet. The mission would succeed, but she would not be there to celebrate the victory. The countdown clock ticked down relentlessly. 10, 9, 8. Alina closed her eyes for a brief moment, her thoughts flashing to the crew, to Terran's sacrifice, to all the lives that depended on her success. She had no regrets. She had come this far, and she would finish the job, no matter what it took. The crew had put their trust in her, and she would honor that trust. 3, 2, 1. Alina pressed the button. In that instant, the shuttle exploded with a force that shook the very fabric of space. The energy surged outwards in a brilliant explosion of light and power. The nanobots had done their work, creating the perfect disruption to the black hole's gravity. The blast redirected the gravitational surge, bending the very nature of the black hole's pull and sending the shockwave out into the empty void. The crew watched in awe as the impossible happened. The black hole's grip on the system was broken. The planets that had been on the verge of destruction were now safe. The energy released by the shuttle's destruction had done what no one thought possible. It had stopped the black hole, saving the system from annihilation. But there was no celebration, no victory cheers. The crew had lost Alina, their leader, their friend. Her sacrifice had saved them, but it came at a cost too great to measure. The loss was overwhelming. They had succeeded, but at what price? As the crew stared at the stars beyond the shattered remnants of their shuttle, they knew one thing for certain. Alina had proven that one human, against all odds, could change the course of fate. She had saved them all with nothing but her brilliance, her courage, and her unshakable will to survive. Alina's final stand had been a victory, but it was one that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Her name would be remembered as the one who faced an impossible force and won. The mission had been completed. The universe had witnessed the unimaginable, and now the survivors could only look at each other in disbelief. The massive black hole, which had once threatened to tear apart the entire system, was now nothing more than a distant memory. Its destruction, however, came at a devastating cost. Alina had succeeded in saving them, but the price was high. Alina lay on a medical bed, her body battered and broken. The explosion that had saved the crew had also inflicted severe injuries on her. The blast had torn through the shuttle systems and sent shockwaves through her body, damaging organs and leaving her barely conscious. But despite the pain, Alina had managed to hold on. She had completed the mission, and for that, she had no regrets. Her mind drifted in and out of consciousness, but her heart swelled with the knowledge that she had done what no one else thought possible. Her name had already spread throughout the galaxy. Alina, the human who had dared to challenge the impossible, the underdog who had taken on an entire alien fleet and saved the galaxy from certain destruction. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of humanity's so-called inferiority, now looked at Earth in a new light. No longer were humans seen as a fragile, unimportant species. They had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, dangerous, unpredictable, and capable of outsmarting even the most advanced civilizations. The news of Elena's actions reached every corner of the galaxy. The once staunch enemies of humanity, particularly the alien species who had doubted them, now found themselves questioning everything they had ever believed. General Tharvok, who had once viewed Elena as nothing more than an obstacle to be discarded, was now forced to confront the reality of what had transpired. His plans had failed, his ego shattered. He had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, had nearly destroyed his own crew and civilization. But it wasn't just Tharvok who felt the sting of shame. The entire alien fleet that had once looked down on humanity was now forced to confront their own flaws. They had treated humans as weak and inconsequential, only to have one human single-handedly change the course of their destiny. They were humiliated, not just because of the loss, but because they had failed to recognize humanity's potential. However, Elena had never been one to hold grudges. In her final moments, when the battle had been won and the black hole had been neutralized, she chose to let go of the anger and bitterness that might have clouded her judgment. Despite everything that had happened, Elena decided to extend a hand of forgiveness. She believed that humanity's strength lay not in vengeance, but in the ability to move forward, to build bridges where others saw walls. Elena's final words to Tharvok were simple yet powerful. "You were wrong, General. But we all make mistakes. We've all got a lot to learn. This is your chance to do better. Don't waste it." Tharvok, standing before Elena in the medical bay, looked at her with a mixture of awe and regret. The alien commander had always seen himself as superior, a being above others in intellect and power. Now, as he looked at the human who had just saved the galaxy, he was humbled. I was wrong," Tharvok said, his voice barely a whisper. "Your species, your people, are not what we thought. You are far more than we ever imagined." Elena gave him a small, pained smile. "We weren't chosen because we are the strongest or the smartest. We dared because we never give up." Her words resonated with the entire crew. The aliens, once smug and full of pride, now understood the power of perseverance. Elena's victory was not just a technical achievement. It was a testament to human resilience, to the unyielding spirit that refused to bow to impossible odds. In that moment, the aliens saw humanity for what it truly was, not just an inferior species, but a force capable of taking on the greatest challenges and emerging victorious. The aftermath of the mission was a turning point for humanity. Elena's actions became a symbol of hope and determination, inspiring countless others across the galaxy to rise above their circumstances and fight for what they believed in. The Galactic Council, once so dismissive of Earth's place in the universe, now found itself sitting at the table with the humans as equals. No longer would Earth be seen as a backwater planet, a place of insignificance. Humans had earned their place in the galaxy, and they were ready to take on whatever challenges the future held. Elena, though injured and exhausted, could feel a sense of peace wash over her. She had achieved what she set out to do. She had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. She had shown that no matter how small or weak you might seem, with determination, courage, and the willingness to never give up, anything was possible. And she had done it all not for fame or recognition, but because she believed in her people, in their strength, and in their ability to change the course of history. As Elena recovered in the medical bay, the crew gathered around her. They spoke in quiet tones, reflecting on everything they had been through and everything they had learned. They had seen the power of unity, of fighting for a cause greater than themselves. They had witnessed the courage of one human who had refused to give up, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. It was then that Elena's final words, the ones she had spoken to Tharvok, echoed through the minds of everyone in that room. "We weren't chosen because we are the strongest or the smartest. We dared because we never give up." And in that moment, the crew understood. They understood that it was not about being the best or the most powerful. It was about the willingness to keep going, to fight through adversity, and to never stop believing in themselves and their mission. The legacy of Elena's sacrifice would live on, not just as a story of triumph over impossible odds, but as a reminder that sometimes the underdog has the power to change everything. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, had proven itself to be a force that no one could ignore, and the galaxy would never be the same again.